Alright, so I figured I would make a video on my experience in East Africa because I got a whole lot to say. I don't even really know where to start, to be honest, because it was a year and a half ago, and you know, but I will say this: I don't really feel like God wanted me to go, but I was so curious about the descendants of Israel that I went. Now, it was so difficult for me to get over there because I couldn't get to Kenya, where I was supposed to fly into, because it said online you can do an e-visa. Now, typically when they say that, it means you show up and then you do the visa there. That was not the case. And so they turned me away at the airport. And so I had to wait to get the e-visa. Well, I wake up the next morning and my Bible is gone. Now, my Bible had my passport in it. And I said, somebody stole my Bible and my passport. Now I can't go anywhere. So I ended up in Dallas for like a week. I had to get a new passport. They call me a day after I find my passport and tell me that they found my passport in the airport. I said, oh my God, all the odds are against me right now. And they were, because it was not God's desire for me to go yet. Now, like a fool, I sold my travel van. This travel van was only $1,500. That's it. And it would have lasted me for like 20 more years. But, I wanted to take things into my own hands. And so, I sold my travel van. But I ended up having to buy another ticket to go to Africa. It was like $735. And then I bought another passport that was $250. Now I was out like $1,000 at that point. And then on top of that, paying to stay in a hostel in Dallas and travel, and I was out like $1,000. So it was crazy, but I did end up making it to Tanzania. Now I've been to 13 countries prior to that, and so the thing is the failure of trying to compare, all right, because every country is different. And so I was comparing, of course, Africa to the other countries that I went to, or East Africa rather. And the thing is, with East Africa, or like parts of East Africa where I was in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I get you anything else?
That's perfect.
Okay, enjoy.
Thanks.
How's everything?
Well, they seem to be stuck in between the modern world and the ancient world, because I think other people are still traveling there, and most of Africa has very corrupt leaders, and so these people aren't seeing any kind of help at all from their leaders, like at all. And it's really unfortunate because you want your leaders to be helping. They're not. And so you got a lot of foreigners coming in, Chinese people, Indian people, all sorts of people from America, and they want to set up these orphanages, and you think they're doing it because, they care about the kids, save the children. No, they're doing it for money. And when I was in Uganda, the crazy part is there was a restaurant there apparently owned by a Chinese man, and he didn't like the local Ugandans coming in. Now, how are you going to set up a restaurant in somebody else's country and then say that the people from those countries can't come in? So this is the same stuff they did during apartheid, right? They created segregation in somebody else's country and then said you can't have any of the resources of your own country. So there's weird stuff like that happening still. And of course, when a person or a group of people, they start to get high-minded, like the house Negroes, they start to treat the field Negroes in a certain way. So there's that going on. Just the fact that in many of these places, these people don't make any more than like $100 a month. Now granted, like rent's cheaper and all that kind of stuff, but it's only feasible if you're working, in a foreign country making more money. If you were to compare their living to our living, $100 a month is not much when your rent's $50, all right? Which is why, of course, you would have a lot of people living in the houses, and they usually do. But unlike our houses, they don't have air conditioning, they don't have heat. A lot of them, they live in tin huts, and that's okay. No running water for me, not okay. For the simple fact is there is a problem with bathing there. There's not a lot of bathing that goes on, which is it can leave a stench in the air, that's for sure. But I tell you what, when I was walking in Kenya through this slum, those people were happy. They were smiling. They were asking each other how they were, and I mean, I saw God. Even despite all the poverty, I saw God. Just the fact that these people have to survive every day. Some of them have to bribe people for jobs, but the provision is there. The fact that they have to cross these wild streets where there's like 40 cars coming from all directions at once, and they cross the street without a scuff. To me, I'm like, that has to be God. Like, that has to be, bro. I've seen that in Mexico too, actually. I'm like, oh, this is expert street crosser. A lot of hostels, I mean, they're more like Airbnbs, and so they'll probably pay anywhere from like $9 to like $15 a night for a hostel. I didn't really understand that because it's like in East Asia, like it's only like $7 for a hostel, and we're not talking about just any hostel. We're talking about like premier hostels. Like, they've got pools in them, everything. Now, not to say that the hostel that I stayed in Dar es Salaam didn't have a pool, because it did, but it seems like, and forgive me for saying this if you're African and watching, it seems like a lot of the Africans, and they said it themselves, they have made it-ism, and so they feel like they've made it somewhere, and so they feel like they don't have to work anymore. So a lot of the times the hostels weren't very clean, the pool wasn't clean, none of that, and it was pretty frustrating. And then they charge you extra for food. Like, a lot of the times in the hostel overseas, you might pay $12 a night, but you know, you get a free drink at the bar, you got a nice clean pool, and you get breakfast for free in the morning. Not the case there. Of course, you know, I'm a hostel dweller. Some people stay in hotels. I don't do hotels. Hostels are cheaper, your money goes further. Plus, a lot of times there won't be anyone in the hostel, or there'll only be you and like 3 other people, so it's not really bothersome to me to stay around other people, you know, if it's off season. And then, what else with Tanzania? Now, one of the coolest trips I took while I was there was right outside of Mount Kilimanjaro. I went to a place, and this land is owned by the Maasai tribe. So Maasai is really, really popular in Tanzania and in Kenya. They're like the skinny ones, the tall skinny ones with the dark skin that wear the plaid get-ups and do the jumping and that kind of thing. Now, the Maasai, they're interesting. They have a story that's a lot like Jacob and Esau, except it's like Sintu and someone else. But it's very, very similar. You should look into it. Well, they have land themselves, and because people love them so much, like they love the Maasai tribe, they make all this money, and they make houses for one another. And so they had some land with some houses, and in their backyard they have a beautiful natural spring that all these people travel to get to. I mean, it's like a whole like pool. It's huge, and it's just all blue. And so that was pretty fun. And it was a cheap journey. I think it was only $12 if you take the scenic route. It takes you about 2 hours to get there. So definitely use motorbikes and use tuk-tuks. Like, for me, ordering a cab and that kind of thing, not really necessary. I never really felt unsafe there, and so that was good. As far as Kenya, I ended up staying in a hostel the whole time in Nairobi. There's a lot to do in Nairobi. I found the Kenyans more welcoming and kinder than the Tanzanians. They just have a natural hospitality with many of them. The hostels there are nicer because I think Nairobi is more established, you know, concerning Western culture. They have really amazing clothing stores. You can like pick up cloth and just get like whatever you want made anywhere, which was pretty cool. Really great food, really great restaurants. Apparently there's a pop in nightlife, but I'm not into that. Nairobi has a really nice mall as well if you're into shopping, but you know, I wasn't really there to shop. But they have a few malls there, definitely a few. Transportation I found was pretty easy. You just take these motorbikes. You just gotta make sure you know, haggle them because they'll try to overprice things, but that's anywhere you go overseas. Uganda, I would say, was the most like home, which was very surprising because my friend, she's from Uganda, and the way she talked about Uganda, she made me think like this is terrible. But no, it was probably the best out of all three. In fact, I stayed there for the longest, other than getting poisoned, But they have a very, very, very nice mall in Kampala, a couple of very, very nice malls. Food from everywhere, anywhere, really good food. You could go down to Entebbe, which is right there on the lake, and it's beautiful. It's like a little resort area. Very nice. I'd suggest people stay there too. Yeah, so I went over there because I wanted to find out about the Israelites, because I found out my heritage was in Spain in the 1500s, right? And it shows a connection between these people in Spain and Kenya. Like, most of my DNA markers are in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and then I have some like really, really early ones in South Africa. Now, I'm of the belief that the Israelites came from around the area of Malawi or maybe the I don't know. I just feel like Israel's actually in Africa and not where they're saying it is. And so I had this dream that there was actually a white glowing cross over East Africa. I said, I don't know what that's about, but I know that the cross, of course, represents the crucifixion of Christ. But the fact that it's white and glowing, I mean, something phenomenal is going to happen here. The cross, I believe, is also the Taw, which looks like a T or an X in ancient Paleo Hebrew. And it means the mark of the covenant. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the Kenyans have been rioting and that kind of thing, and so perhaps there's an upheaval going on, because something's about to really go down. Well, anyway, back to what I was saying. So it gave me travel destinations, and I was thinking that the travel destinations that, it would give me would be Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, maybe a little bit in Central and West Africa. No, it gave me Saifi and Sidon, Lebanon, and then in parentheses it put Israel. And I said, okay, well, interesting. I mean, that was probably my folks that came down during the Spanish Inquisition into Africa. We know that there was 115 towns of the tribe of Africa in Ouida, aka Judah, and so there's a connection. Now, when I was in Uganda, there was this restaurant I went to, and on the back of their shirts it said Ephraim. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm of the tribe of Ephraim. I'm Yoruba, and they have a connection to that, and so there's that. When I was in Uganda, I met two men from the Luya tribe. They were from Kenya. Because a lot of times the Kenyans will go back and forth to Uganda and vice versa to do business and that. Well, I told one of them about the Israelites. He was like, oh yeah, I heard that before. And then the other one said, yeah, I know I'm a descendant of Israel. And so they're there. Zephaniah 3:10 states that I will bring my people from beyond the rivers of Cush. And so you have Cush that actually runs through that area. And you have the Nile River, which, it does not start in Egypt, and it's not only, secluded to Egypt. It actually flows from Uganda all the way up to Egypt. It starts in Lake Victoria. So you have that river, and I believe that's what it means from beyond the rivers of Cush. Now, they have found several tribes, or like a tribe, and they still kind of wear the same thing as what the Israelites, like with the hymns, the fringes on the hymns and that kind of thing. And then I spoke to one guy, he was Nilotic, all right? And he said that Ruto, which is the president of Kenya, is also Nilotic, and he said that they are descendants of Egypt. And so I said, well, maybe this is kind of like a Pharaoh thing going on with the Israelites. Like, they're in the land of Egypt right now, and, they're being ruled over by a Pharaoh. So I said, well, maybe that's why the white glowing cross thing is there. But they have, like I was saying in the comment, they have all this lion imagery everywhere, especially in Tanzania. Like, it was more popular in Tanzania than what it was in Kenya. or Uganda. So I said, well, maybe the tribe of Judah is here. I did meet one guy, and I forgot what tribe he was. It wasn't Kumba. I don't remember. There's a lot of different tribes. But, I mean, the way this man talked, he looked so, like, on the outside, he looked like so innocent. But, like, when he talked, it was like he had this deep, bold voice. Like, it was clear, like a lion. I said, I wonder if this dude is the tribe of Judah, man, because that voice, bro. I say he could command armies with that voice. So I had an interesting experience. Almost died in Uganda because I believe somebody poisoned me, but you know, I made it through. And the reason why I made it through was because I stayed in the hospital for 6 days. I was praying. I was playing music to uplift the people in the hospital, godly music, not just any kind of music. You know, they were trying to kill me in there. I was in the bed, and this dude every morning would like take my bed and slam it against the wall. I said, they're trying to kill me. And then they tried to make me do a blood infusion or a blood transfusion. I said, no, I'm not putting nobody else's blood in my blood. That's crazy. No, just seems against God to me. And so the nurse literally like yelled at the top of her lungs at me. I'm like, why are you yelling at a sick patient at the top of your lungs? You're all a bunch of witches and warlocks. And so after the 6 days, I ended up leaving, and I showed up at this one guy's house in Entebbe, which is right outside of Kampala, Uganda. And thank God he loved Jamaican culture. I believe he was Ghanaian, but he loved Jamaican culture. And apparently there's a connection between the Jamaicans and the Ghanaians. Like, many of them, that is where their ancestry is from. And so he had this Jamaican tea that he made every morning. It was like cloves and, I don't know, all sorts of spices. And so I think between drinking that tea and just like praying incessantly and reading my word for 3 days straight, I was healed pretty quickly. And then I came back to America. But yeah, I think one of the things we're expecting when we get to Africa is that everybody's just going to be like, oh, welcome to the motherland, welcome back. That's not the case, okay? At least not in East Africa. Most people were not welcoming. And a lot of people want to use you because they're in a place of, you know, poverty. But the things that I did see that were, you know, of God really were glorious. I stayed in a retreat, Buddhist retreat, for a little bit because I did that before coming to God. Now, I didn't go because I wanted to practice Buddhism. I went to see the difference between, you know, what I believe now and what I was believing then, because, you know, everything's a blur when you don't have God. And so I sat in that retreat, and God said, every single person in this room is a descendant of Israel. These people were Ugandans, they were Kenyans, mostly. He said they're Israel. And so that whole time, it was 10 days, silent retreat. He had me calling down fire from heaven to protect them. He had me stop a storm one time. I came out one day. It was so funny. I came out one day, and there was just a random table in the field. And he goes, I prepare a table in the face of your enemies. And I said, okay, I see what you did there. And he did, because I had this roommate. He gave me a vision of her, and she had on this flag, the Israeli flag, you know, the blue and white one with the 6, you know, points or whatever. And she was like running with it like a cape. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I still don't know what that means to this day. But that girl, she was trying to take me out. She had to be some kind of witch or some kind of warlock. And she would make me so mad. But then God was like, you still need to love her. And so I said, all right, well, I guess I'll do that. And then at the end of the retreat, there was another girl. And we were allowed to talk to each other on the 10th day. And so God told me to talk to her because I guess just talk to her. And so I did that. And come to find out, she actually was a believer prior to that, but she fell away. And so, you know, when I came to God, I was into the whole Buddhism, Hinduism, New Age thing, but nobody was there initially to tell me, no, this is not the way. This is the way, walk in it. And so I was able to tell her, this is the way, walk in it. It's not this stuff. Believe me, I've done all that. If you didn't notice, like, this guy, he's literally quoting the Bible the whole time. It's not even Buddhism, really. And so, that was a blessing, because when I first came to God, I was in New Zealand, and there was some random Christian at the house that I was at, and he had an American accent. I don't even know who this man was till today. But Satan literally was trying to make a deal with me. He told me, what if you could have any job that you wanted? And that man, whoever it is, he said, I'm going to stick with God. And I knew I should say that to this person that was trying to make me a deal. I don't even know why I knew it. I think God just put it in my heart to say. And so I said it to him, and he got up and walked away. I said, oh my God, that guy was trying to make a deal with me. And so when he says, I leave the 99 to find the one, like, it's absolute facts. That's what he does, which is why he needs us to be, out there walking around and doing the thing. So anyway, my suggestion is, if anyone wants to go to Africa, to make sure that it is led by God. Because the fact of the matter is, like, you could get in a lot of trouble if it's not. Because my plan was to stay, and I think God's like, send her a plague. Send her a plague. She ain't staying here. Up. Shorten her account by $1,000 so she can't stay any longer than our 1 or 2. So yeah, but I did have a dream that I would be in Africa helping orphans, and then last night he gave me a dream of making things to help women in Kenya. So we're going to see how that works, because those are my people after all, as are all you guys. So just wait on the Lord. He's going to be the one to take us out this land. So anyway, out of the 3 countries that I went to Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Dar es Salaam has a beach. But the thing is, there's like really not that many people that frequent the beach. At least they weren't there when I went. That was like September, and it was still hot outside, so I don't know. I was confused about that, but it's not very popular yet. Beautiful sunrises, beautiful sunsets, though. It's kind of, there's cliff areas that you can find to watch the sunset and the sunrise over the beach. At least the sunrise over the beach. Everyone that went to Uganda that I talked to, nice hostels as well in Uganda. They said that they really loved Rwanda, and they said that they really loved South Africa. So those are the 2 places where everyone seems to love in Africa, and maybe Madagascar. But the thing is, with Rwanda, the reason why they got it like they do is because they're persecuting the Congolese. So that made me not want to go. I'm like, you're getting all your wealth from the destruction of people that look just like you, so no. And then South Africa, hopefully that's my next trip. That's really where I want to go. I found out that one of my oldest links is Malawi, and I was praying to God about Malawi, if there's Israelites there, and he actually told me last year that there's a pure line of Israelites in Malawi. So I would like to go there, in actual South Africa, and just see.